Maite Green Mercado. I am Newark Campus Director of the Institute for the Study of Global Racial Justice, and I want to welcome you all to our inaugural exhibition celebrating the art of Newark artist Bleriot Thompson. So Bleriot's work on display throughout our office. If you haven't seen it, please have a chance to look at it while you're here and make sure not to miss it. There are QR codes that accompany each piece, which will lead you to audio descriptions of the pieces by the artist, and you can also find them on our website, and also make sure to visit the artist's website as well. So before I begin, I would like to share two poems that speak to me in similar ways to how the art of Bleriot Thompson speaks to me. I'm not a poet, I'm not an artist, I don't usually sit and read a lot of poetry, but I've been spending a lot of time with a good friend, Baba Baji, in New Brunswick, who always starts with a poem, so I want to start with one. The poem is titled Freedom by Langston Hughes. Freedom will not come today, this year, nor ever, through compromise and fear. I have as much right as the other fellow has to stand on my 2 feet and own the land. I tire so of hearing people say, let things take their course. Tomorrow is another day. I do not need my freedom when I'm dead. I cannot live on tomorrow's bread. Freedom. Freedom is a strong seed planted in a great need. I live here too. I want my freedom just as you. And I want to share the excerpt of another poem, this one by Claudia Rankin, that invites us to a collective dialogue, and it's titled What If, from her book Just Us. What if what I want from you is new, newly made, a new sentence in response to all my questions, a swerve in our relation and the words that carry us, the care that carries. I am here without the shrug, attempting to understand how what I want and what I want from you run parallel. Justice and the openings for just us. Okay, so the Newark campus branch of the Institute for the Study of Global Racial Justice serves as a platform that brings together scholars and students across the campus who are committed to the study of race and racial justice locally and globally and from a multidisciplinary perspective. Staying true to the mission of Rutgers-Newark as it has been articulated by our Chancellor, Nancy Cantor, to serve as an anchor institution that it is at once in Newark and of Newark, we engage with these pressing issues inside the classroom through our research and by establishing dialogues and partnering with communities around us. As a Mellon-funded initiative, ISGRJ Newark takes seriously the Mellon Foundation's mission to, quote, celebrate the power of the arts to challenge, activate, and nourish the human spirit, end quote. This was precisely the sentiment that inspired the idea behind the exhibition that we share with you today. The first time that I walked through these halls into the ISGRJ offices 2 years ago, I was struck by this magnificent building with these amazing tall walls, and I was also struck by how bare these walls were. At the time, Terry Coopersmith, our wonderful administrator at ISGRJ, and I had both arrived. We had opened our doors to the community, and we started talking about how we could create a space that was warm and inviting for our community, for our students, for our postdoctoral fellows, for our faculty, which would reflect the mission and the vision of ISGRJ and that we could create a space that reflected the work of racial justice. So I turned to the repository of all knowledge about Newark, the amazing administrator Christina Strasburger, who is the administrator for History and Africana, who immediately put us in touch with Ananda, and I will introduce Ananda shortly. So I began explaining to Ananda what we were trying to achieve. We wanted to create this inviting space that would inspire us in our collective work, and we also wanted to support local Newark artists at the same time. So she immediately got what we were talking about, and it really has been a privilege to partner with the Paul Robeson Galleries to create this exhibition featuring your art. So the artist series is titled Public Enemy, and it documents the Black experience and recovers, preserves, honors, and foregrounds a memory and history that has the capacity to raise our collective consciousness. As a form of visual storytelling, his art, which he defines as a form of protest, has the capacity to heal and to repair. Ultimately, it speaks to the ways artists can imagine freedom and the liberatory practice of art itself. So I want to introduce Ananda, who will say a few words, and then I will introduce our artist and our interlocutor. So Ananda Bell is an Australian-born, United States-based curator, writer, and artist. She completed 2 bachelor's degrees and a postgraduate diploma and Master of Fine Arts at Melbourne, Australia. She currently is the director and chief curator for the Paul Robeson Galleries, where she has worked since 2007. Prior to that, she worked in the non-for-profit museum sector in Australia and the United States. Her curatorial practice is focused on contemporary art across all media, with the intention of making art accessible to all, and we see this today. In her personal artwork, she addresses subject matters inspired by psychology, science, philosophy, feminism, and the environment. So please join me in welcoming Ananda Bell, my partner in crime in this project.
Thank you very much for everybody coming today. I'm not going to stand behind the podium, breaking down the barriers. I'd just like to say thank you for the opportunity to work with you on this project and your colleagues who are all in the room. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you to the artists. Without you, there wouldn't actually be anything for us to look at, to think about, and to be inspired by. I just wanted to talk about how this particular project, which is one of a number that we're doing across campus, fits into our agenda as the Paul Robeson Galleries. So Paul Robeson was many things to many people, obviously a Rutgers graduate, but a lawyer, an artist, a performer, a singer, an advocate for many, many people. In 1960, he actually came out to Australia and he performed at the Sydney Opera House. And the thing that's remarkable about this is he performed at the Sydney Opera House while it was being constructed. So there was actually no iconic Sydney Opera House. It was just a lot of scaffolding and a lot of workers. He was the first person to perform, and he thought it was very important that the people that were actually building the place had the opportunity to hear him sing. I grew up with a father who played Paul Robeson records, so I knew that side of it, but I thought his idea that everybody should have access to the arts, not just people that are going to buy some very expensive tickets to see somebody in an opera house. So that kind of inspires the way that I think about art on this campus, which is I want to try and get into as many buildings with as many artists and as many walls and as many spaces that we can possibly put things. And the intention of this is really to encourage people to have a life that is enriched by exposure to culture, exposure to ideas, and maybe there are things there that will resonate with you. Maybe there are things that might provoke or annoy or infuriate, but at least we're kind of providing you with an opportunity to expand on the experience you might have on campus anyway. So I just want to finish quickly with saying, Paul Robeson said, artists are the gatekeepers of the truth, they're civilization's radical voice, and I could not say that it would not apply to our artists for today. I will not speak for you because I'm really looking forward to hearing what you have to say. So thank you, and thank you to everybody.
Thank you, Ananda.
I want to thank a few people without whom this event would have not been possible. So I have to thank our amazing administrator, Terry Cooper-Smith, for all the work that she has done, for the hours, the conversations, the brainstorming, and for making this happen. Thank you. And I also want to thank our indefatigable Director of Communications, Tanya Bentley, for all the hard work. I want to thank a few more people, Ananda, of course, for taking this collaboration so enthusiastically, Amber Randolph, Talisha Johnson, Angelita Bonilla, Monica Coleman, and for their gracious enthusiasm and support for this installation. They were very excited when we came up with the idea. And finally, I would like to thank our Chancellor, Nancy Cantor, and the leadership of Rutgers-Newark for your support, your commitment to advancing a shared mission and vision of equity and racial justice. Thank you. I don't know what we're going to do without you. Item met. So, Bleriot Thompson is a Newark-based painter and mixed media artist working primarily with paint to find where identity lies in the struggle for equity. Thompson studied at the University of William Patterson, where he received his BFA in 2018. You're so young. His work looks to push the boundary between art, culture, and its preservation through documentation. In 2018, Thompson was accepted into Creative Capital's Professional Development Program, and in the following year, 2019, he was accepted into the Early Art Practitioners Pilot Program at Joan Mitchell Foundation in New York. Thompson has exhibited work at several galleries and institutions. From the noteworthy include Galleria Faro, the Brooklyn Museum, the Brooklyn Children's Museum, Ben Shahn University Galleries at William Patterson University. In the fall of 2023, he presented the first solo exhibition for his current series that we have a couple of pieces here, Public Enemy, at Galleria Faro. In 2024, a portrait of the series was selected as a permanent outdoor installation for the Brooklyn Children's Museum skating rink. That's great. That's awesome. And the amazing, wonderful Jamilah Malika Abu-Bakare, or Bakare. You said it the first right. Okay. She's an artist, writer, and educator interested in exploring artistic practices that move us all towards freedom. Her work has played or shown from Sweden to LA and across Canada, including Contemporary Field Gallery, Vancouver, Circuit Gallery in Toronto, and Espace Pop, Montreal. Her writing has appeared in Canadian Art Magazine, CBC Arts Online, Active Cultures Digest, and most recently in Lamp Black Magazine. And she is also a professor here at the University of Rutgers-Newark in the Africana Studies Department. So we are very, very lucky to have Jamilah here with us. So please join me in welcoming our two speakers today. We're really excited to hear what you have to say.
Thank you so much, Maite.
It really is interesting to me. I'm thinking about the series and how there are both people that I recognize and people who you've taught me a lot about. Can you talk about how you go about choosing the subjects of your portraits?
I feel like everybody's on this like tree I'm called like this offending tree looking at Public Enemy, because everybody has the people that are around them that are responsible for their growth. So I might wanted to Tom Morrison and just doing research on her, Langston comes up, my TV comes up, and it's like I write down these names because I want to know what role being played and being connected to Tony, but then I want to know if it's connected to them. So it's almost like this web that never ends. And I think in the beginning, the challenge for me was, where do I start with history? Do I start in present tense, or do I start back in like the 18th century and like do we start bringing everything back? And I realized that for me, it's more interesting if I'm jumping back between time periods. So I feel like I could talk to somebody who's 10 years younger than me, 10 years older than me, and beyond, and then be able to hold this conversation with.
Yeah, man. I'm thinking about how I see Lauryn Hill and Beyonce and Solange, like very contemporary portraits, and also reaching that Alice Bazaar, Sisters of Black Hampton Harp, and this range. What do you think it gives us to be able to look at it all together as viewers?
To look it all together, I think, honestly, I just think it's a blessing. I think it's a blessing because a lot of times we're so engulfed in like the now and things happening immediately that, like when I took on this task, I didn't see it as something that will happen overnight or in the next year. So it's not that kind of process where I feel like I'm constantly getting rewarded. But when I look back on the year, I get to see the individuals I was able to bring to life. It does give me like a sense of fulfilling.
That's so important. I love this idea to bring to life these characters, and when I look at your works and I think about kind of history of portraiture that you're studying when you go to art school, there's such a difference in the hues and shades and colors that I see in your work as opposed to traditional portraiture, which is really often very dark. And I wonder, I see your work and I think, how do we insert ourselves in a history of portraiture? And I see your use of color as a way to do something really interesting there. How do you see your taking up space in portraiture with these bright colors?
I feel like incorporating the bright colors, well, for starters, I love experimenting with color. I like just color blocking and putting colors next to each other, seeing how they change the composition or how the viewer feels about the composition. So a lot of times I'm even working with the background that I'm putting the canvas on and just seeing how that changes the relationship. When I started Public Enemy, I felt like I was met with so many heavy themes, and I was like kind of holding on to like the hardships of the people that I was painting. And so many of the people at the first chapter that were going, the first 12, I think 4 of them were assassinated. So it's like, I'm thinking about the heaviness of some of these messages and how do I counteract that and make it where it's approachable enough that I could hold conversation with different groups of people, like children, as well as, I'm not always just thinking about one of audience, I see like the audience is just like the world. So when I stepped at it, I feel like the bright colors were able for me to bring in different emotions into the piece. And the best way to describe it was, I was talking to one of my nephews, and I was like, I think I want to try to make a children's book for adults. Because it's like, if I could convey that message to somebody who's setter and they don't know things that I played into the piece, and me talking to somebody my age, older, it's going to be like conversation will go a lot more, but they understand like the new kind of body the pangs.
Thank you. I mean, it's really, I'm thinking about a work called Invisibility that is bright yellow. Spread. Isn't that interesting? And you aren't using a traditional canvas, which is something I imagine that's not easy to paint on that material. And so you're so committed and to work through. Can you talk a little bit about just the practicality of painting on a soft blanket? I don't even imagine that. I don't even sure I've seen that in other works. And I feel like I would have had teachers who would have suggested, no, you don't want to paint on this material. This is crafts advisable in terms of traditional painting techniques.
I feel like I've always had a very experimental approach to art.
Yeah. And
I don't want to think that materials are limiting me, because I feel like they're also like empowering me. I like to across these materials. The piece that you're talking about, and just villaging, it's a soft yellow cloak, and I remember I came across it, and it reminded me of a fabric that I grew up with, and I think that's the reason why I was thrifting. I was like, I gotta put this in my cart. And I'll leave it there. I got up to Rutgers until like a year after me acquiring the fabric. But I like to think that like when I'm acquiring some of these materials, sometimes I don't know how to go about painting them and preparing them. Well, now I do. And when it's somebody with a funny for satire, I don't know where they fit in Public Enemy. But the fact that I already acquired them, they're in the back of my mind. So it's like a problem that I'm walking around with. So powers to see that's going to solve itself.
That's fantastic. I think there are ways that you're talking about, balancing what can be challenging with potential that I might not know yet, whether that's the themes of the work or the materials of the work. And I want to just return to what I heard you say about my audience is the world. And kind of recall about, the ways that seeing yourself remind you growing up in Newark, in and around Newark, allowed you to become this kind of artist. And how when you're just thinking about representation in your viewers and children to kind of a audience who could be as broad and diverse as the world. Where are you holding, or how are you holding the possibility that they don't understand? I sometimes for artists, I think there's this idea of, for example, your introduction text, and what does it are you worried about what they'll take away? Effort.
I do think about it. I don't think I'll worry about it now. I think maybe that's something that I did at the beginning of like my journey. I used to worry about how things were being received, and I feel like it's like a human tendency, and I want to know how. But now I know that I've put enough information in there that they're gonna leave with something.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody might not like a composition, but you just talk to the idea of pain on something that's soft, that shouldn't really be able to take pain. Maybe somebody walks away with that. I feel like for me, it's about history just shouldn't be like gatekept.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like the first goal is to put the information out there.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times some people might get frustrated by something and they don't know why they're frustrated by something.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that is on the viewer to solve.
Mm-hmm.
I can't be there to solve all the problems, but what my work does is it starts a conversation. So you don't know why the must are frustrated or might have happy, but those are things that you're trying to like revisit in your mind, and maybe you find yourself back in my work or on my brick.
You're planting a seed. Yeah, I really see that. I think about just the way that you present Alison Saar and her understanding her work as protest, and you understanding your work as protest, but also having a kind of peace about the viewer and their own negotiation. That's really profound for me personally as an artist to think about. Have you experienced this, very long we look back to essays from the 1920s where artists are struggling with that Black identity, and they're talking about the pressures and responsibility of being a Black artist. And I see you having transformed this kind of pressure or responsibility into this beautiful series. Have you ever felt a kind of, or you described perhaps something earlier in your work, I saw you use the word fear, that often the subjects of your portraits are that they are othered as scary, or that Blackness is pathologized as criminal, or to be afraid of some kind of threat, and how you're folding actually proposing what Blackness could be, and or what else Blackness is, that beyond these stereotypes you've kind of created a true archive.
I think this was from my life experience, experiencing microaggressions, to be honest. And I think the other day I was talking to somebody at work, and they said, "You're very well spoken," and then they saw there's sentence cut off. But I know there's a couple ways that sentence could have ended, and I feel like the idea is to just, I think if you look around the line and you're looking for the negativity, then you're always going to find it. And I think what I'm trying to do is provide opportunities for people to walk away with much more. I think even though it is a responsibility, I don't look at it like a responsibility. I get to do this. I get to be here. I get to bring these people to life. It doesn't feel like a chore to me. It doesn't feel like work to me. One of the quotes that kind of stuck with me when I was leading Wade Patterson, I was kind of stuck on two different directions I was going to go. And I was doing this internship at the John Mitchell Foundation, and I came across this Nina Simone video. And one of the ideas was Public Enemy, and it was the idea of me capturing Black experiences, me showing us in a different light. And the other one was a photography series, and she talked about it's an artist's responsibility to document time, and I feel like it was the perfect sign that I needed that day, because I was in this 50-50 kind of mode of thinking, and I just went with the right. Let's say we're going to go, and we're not going to look back. So I think after having that conversation, there wasn't a regret in my mind, and whether I went the right way. I just felt it is a responsibility, because nowadays you see people censoring history, or they're redacting things from textbooks, and if somebody doesn't tell you how these events really happened, a decade from now, 2 decades from now, it's going to be gone. We think it's going to take longer than that, but like I said, we're still stuck in the now, then that information will disappear.
The sisters on the wall behind us, can you tell me the painting's name?
The Sisters of the Revolution.
Yes, and their names are Winston and
one behind us.
Yes.
So it's Winston and Dobie Hudson.
Winston and Dobie Hudson. And so, this is this kind of redacted, the kind of erasure or redaction or revision that you're working against. I was actually unfamiliar with these sisters, and so could tell us all about them.
So Winston and Dobie Hudson were one of the first. They were the first Black plain citizens in the state of Mississippi to file a suit of desegregation against the state. They helped democratize voter registration in Mississippi. They implemented nutrition programs. They started daycare programs, and this whole idea, of in the painting, you see the 3 generations. It's kind of this information that's passed down, and it's there's a shield over us. They can't touch us. And it's this idea, if we all carry this mentality, if we're all protecting our own, then they really can't touch us. If we're controlling the food that we eat, if we're controlling how the food is being harvested, how it's being grown, then it's they can't poison with food, and can. So this idea of us creating a shield, not to keep others out, but to keep us safe.
And for all the studies that I have done around activism of specifically Black women, these were unknown to me. And so just thinking about the work of your series as this opportunity of almost like citation, and so that I know that there are ways that Black artists often do a kind of homage or dedication, and just hearing the ways that you describe this not as a responsibility, but rather as this rich well. What does it mean for you to select each of these subjects, and how are we really, as viewers, learning, but also honoring? For me, there is a kind of homage that's very clear throughout your work. How deliberate or how strategic, I know there are many more subjects in the series, for example. Are you about choosing each work and about offering kind of information in the didactics as a way for us to work past these revisionists and these evocative revision and the action migration?
When I first started the series, I keep going back to the beginning because it was like there was so many possibilities, and then I just realized that I can't kind of do them all. I wanted it to be like this archival kind of sanctuary. I wanted to be able to pay homage to some of them, and I was like, how am I really going to do that? When some of these people have like accomplished so much in their life, how do I include that only in one piece? And sometimes you can't include that into all in one piece, so it's like a lot of times I'm trying to find a moment that I'm like flimsy and tired, that I'm bringing to life. And then I'm using a moment that everybody's in front of the painting to either educate people on some of the parts of the story, because if you're really interested in this person, for me, Public Enemy is like finding other problem solvers. Like earlier we were talking about these modes of problem solving, then it's like one of the laws of power. Like if I don't have an answer and I'm like looking back in history and I see somebody else who has the answer, it's a privilege for me to like find that shortcut. Like I needed that information. It was just brought to you. I didn't have to like stumble in the dark from forever. And now I could build on that solution instead of just like go like shooting in the dark fully, So like this idea of like no wasted movement, like there's this just build it all information that's there because it is there.
Yeah.
And we just have to like look for it.
Yeah. Here you use the word archival sanctuary. We've all heard that, but not mine. I want you to what, like when I can feel it sanctuary, but can you talk about what that because for Black people, the archive is not necessarily a place of sanctuary. He knows the archive is this place where we were quantified or made into commodities, etc. And so this is a beautiful alternative possibility. What is this word, or with these words, archival sanctuary?
So when I say that, it's almost like I'm picturing like a futuristic library. And so it's funny because like I see it in my mind, but I'm like, you guys can't see it. So it's like when I started it, I just felt like every time I'm getting an opportunity to put another entry in. And even when I went to visit like the Reviver, I remember I was trying to get a library card forever. As soon as I got one, I had a chance to take a trip across the street and like look at their special collections. And also this idea that it's like there's somebody with the key and they have to go across the street and then they walk you through this building and it's like security checking you. And so you finally get through all of these obstacles. It's like you have this unlimited information and there's people put in place to protect it instead of like, come on, like enemy. So that's how I think of like every public enemy that gets done. And I think that's why I'm like willing to move on to the next one, even though it's like I'm grateful and I'm blessed with another opportunity to add another entry.
Would you like to share with the title how many entries you could get? Only because I know this number. So you have to hear this number.
Well, when I set out in the beginning, I said have to be 1,000. from this minimum. So we're approaching the 70s, so close to it far. See this song. So
When I hear sanctuary, I think refuge. And, for me, there's a few artists who I think of when I think of their work. One is Glenn Ligon, who included text from James Baldwin in a beautiful work. And he did so because he was at art school and he referenced James Baldwin in a class and no one knew music. And I also think about Simone Lee when I look at specifically the sisters Winsome and Ossie, because they don't have eyes. And often in Simone Lee's work, she doesn't include the eyes. Her busts and her sculptures out of laughing. So I just wanted to think about, this idea that James Baldwin is doing this what you described is offering Glenn Ligon by including James Baldwin, is doing this piece of taking that thing that's locked away or that is unknown and putting it up on the gallery wall for everyone to learn. And also there is this way where you are, you've also done your own kind of revision and redaction by removing the eyes there. And that, it is Simone Lee's work. It has a lot of interesting, people describe this idea of like refusal or that, I'm not getting. And I'd love to hear about it in that picture, why you made that choice.
Okay, so in all the public enemies I've realized, I do focus on the eyes. I feel like that's like almost like the foundation of my portraits. So when I was faced with this going, it was almost like I was moving and set anything on, and I'm triggered myself and to do, because I felt like their story where they were, the story was like the story of detectives. And like you think of like detectives and like the one with the arms closed. It's like sometimes you don't get to see their face, get to like make that kind of introduction with that, because they're guarding something that's important. And I feel like that's the way being embraced, protecting their community. And the other reference you made to James Baldwin, I was actually going to tell you back there, I was like, it was actually funny that you said like, because the students that James Baldwin was. And the other day I was talking with my brother, and I said that my mom would like give me all these different books. And I remember I had a Black History project, and it was study read, and everybody did Rosa Parks, MLK, and Harry. And I feel like those are like three names out here. And this is when I moved out of here into Woodbridge. So I would just see these three names plastered all around my halls. And I chose Frederick Douglass. And the teacher next door didn't know who he was. And it was just kind of like those, it's like at that moment, I didn't think of it. I just thought about this like literally like 3 weeks ago. It's kind of crazy that, like coming back to it, like I was like kind of crazy that she didn't know Frederick Douglass Gary's and Fred. And this is kind of like some of the stuff that like
be very generous by saying grace. Yes, definitely. And so, that it's like 70-year-old Leah had this feeling and knew this work. But
not really though. It's like now I'm looking back on these moments and I'm seeing how they informed how I go about things today.
Yeah.
But it's like I go back and I like conjure in some of those memories, and it's like I learned something out of it. Like I'll say like the other day the conversation started with you, my brother, talking about like how sometimes it could be like remote mingle and like reading, but like survive the pair okay real quick, and they'll just like put the like it's up. It's just like you like a Toshiba like remote mingle. But also I know I was saying like we really did have access to I think a different set of books than like our neighbors and other people were So it's like, that's something like I'm grateful for now that I didn't realize. I still like now, like growing up with this up and did really to the moment to appreciate that speed.
And I often, when I first met you, I think I made these kinds of quick relationships between yourself and coaching or even with this arts. I kind of just thought of Black men painters that I knew. Which is this kind of simple thing that people do in art schools. You go to a critique and you had to make design quick. And so I'm not, later I was thinking more about the themes of your work, and so the go to my hand slowly. But when you think about your art, who do you feel in conversation with? Are there, outside of artists, perhaps you're thinking alongside research or scholars or musicians or filmmakers. When you think about your work, what do you see it in connection to?
Well, that's actually a great question. Because a lot of times when I'm creating, I'm not thinking of other artists, but I think when I step back, I think about some of the artists that kind of inspire me. Like after I had that encounter with the Nina Simone quote, I think about like the first group of artists that I went to go see at Kirsten. I felt like that was huge for me, like getting to see the work in person. And some of those artists were like Ken James Marshall, Annie Sherrill, Ming Smith, Charles White, Henry Taylor, and the list like goes on. Like there's so many that all people to show like don't want to leave them out. But I'm like, just like getting to see these works in person, it let me know that like pretty much like this archive that I'm gonna create is like very possible. And I got a chance to see like also this retrospective show, so like being able to go to like 5 floors, even of the paintings, and I'm like, this is like I'm thinking about creating like a library paintings, and I'm like getting a chance to like walk through this. It just felt like everything was pointing me in the proper direction. So.
Our library is the into it. This is the 1,000.
Yeah.
That's the album. The middle of the United East. Can be man asked who has yet to be painted, who is in your mind? I think
there's so many. I really have to pull out a list. And with her and talk to the back, there's fellow like Mesopotamian names off the top of my head. There's so many, but there was political prisoners that I get to paint. Trying that like in the immediate future, because I'm like working on like 11 like that.
You work on 11?
Yeah, right.
Oh.
Right now I'm working on for painting of the Shindani toy factory. So 2 people that started that out, and just the way that they were thinking about representation for like toys, being the first Black toy company, and they creating toys that align like over the races and like like with which incredible kind of like.
Yeah, I could actually from like the Shendo toy.
So Shindad.
Shindad.
So I think it's Swahili. It means to compete. So they thought about like when we were all going into the space that we're going to compete with the toy companies, compete with everybody, all that, even though we're starting out in LA and this at the time with like the Black Panther a little bit. So a lot of the women that were working in the factories at that time were also part of the movement. So that's part of the reason why it's like this is a revolution, because like everybody looks at these women as if they're rank and file or if they're unqualified secretaries, but in reality, a lot of these women were responsible for the breakfast programs, for making sure that the newspaper went out, on editing, like all the printed material went out around the community. So it's like this idea that they've always been around the scene.
In that detail, there is lettering along the side. And there are ways that the text here is beautiful cursive appears in their work, and this detail in that work. Would you like to tell us a little bit of the story of that canvas?
Yeah, of course. So that canvas had been through a lot. It actually was damaged in a fire in 2021, and the painting that I was working on was actually the first Public Enemy painting. So if you guys do get a chance to see this is through Revolution, you'll see that it said it's like keep me 001, it says Malcolm. So like underneath this, maybe when they create the X-ray technology for painting, you'll see a drawing of Malcolm X, and just this idea of getting the work back almost like a year later and getting the database and trying to find a way to repurpose it instead of just art it. I feel like a lot of times we're quick to discard things that we feel like are no longer like useful to us, but still has a lot of use. So I even think to like cut the name long because I just felt like, they're all related, they're all So this idea of like reshaping canvas, and I chose to put it on my structures at the end, just almost like their solidarity, how they're beating against each other. So I wanted it to feel a large south.
Right.
Yeah.
So some of the works are not on a kind of frame. Some of the works are like the blanket, for example, is, this is all very, when you use the words like experimental, show painters tend to make on a canvas that is already stretched and that sort of thing. And so if you stretch at the end.
Sometimes electrical, sometimes it's in the beginning.
Yeah.
I had a silhouette of Mars and I took it off, and so it goes back and forth. It's not like it's not all again. So
yeah, it's really, there's so much to think about the way that that Malcolm X is behind the women, or that usually the opposite get it. I'm this man or women. It's that's inverted. And there's a lot of it's really and this idea of working against the disposability of things that we think are now not useful to us, and so many beautiful layers to that work. And I also recall you talking about your choices for skin tone. And so we see a beautiful range in that work. And can you share why you made those choices?
So a lot of times, like the photos that I'm working from, and I'm going to like different photo archives, a lot of them are black and white because of the time period. Some of them are black and white so that they can make that history feel like it was further away. So it's like, sometimes I don't know if it's intentional or not. And that's why earlier I said like bring some of these paintings to life, because like I like kind of reverse my process. I used to have all these color photos and I would just draw in black and white. And it kind of changed to like now I'm dealing with all these black and white references and I'm imagining distinct colors and hues. So on some of the ladies, when I exaggerate some of them on these hues of purple or like these bright red, because it is like a spectrum, just in and like the color dips stand out.
Man, it's beautiful. I think I sat for a painting when I was a child, and I saw the painter use red and purple, and I do have that awareness. And I actually, and my child is right now having a lot of confusion around the color black and all of the ranges of black skin. And that is very common. And so I think that those kinds of bright uses of color help us remember that black is everything. And even those artists who feel confined by black as a label, that in color theory, black is everything. And so there's this beautiful way that the brightness of your palette helps us remember more than the leaves that we have is typified, and it's remember a few. It's so beautiful. In my work, I'm just so astounded by the goal of one bit among 1,000. Like I just wonder, and and just the specificity and not just the case of the big three. I'm like 7 years old, like Andre's talking about seeing 3 people. I'm going to talk about somebody different. And to think about it, a black toy company in the 60s, and the 2 people who started it at a portrait, like this is a very specific, in terms of research of finding these subjects, in terms of dedicating the time to working with the materials that are as challenging as a fuzzy yellow baby blanket, how do you organize this kind of process in your studio? How does the work get done?
it just like a multitude of ways. I feel like I spoke to you earlier about how in the beginning I felt like productivity was more about like doing something physical every single day. Mm-hmm. And I realized that there was like a part that's like lacking, like just because I'm trying to be on a physical pursuit, get my technical abilities up every day, and I'm not really nurturing my mind or some of the like establishing a relationship with some of the people. And this is kind of like before I came into Public Enemy. So like now I might work in the groups of 10 or groups of 8, and I have it like across the board where I'm studying 8 people, I'm building 8 different relationships. And maybe that first day, I'm trying to make one physical sketch with one of the references, but at the same time, I'm still in tandem with the other side of them. So this idea that I could wake up in the morning and read over an article on it. The reason why I found again within the toy company is I was reading a book by Brad yourself here. Like reading a book, like reading 2 chapters of A Taste of Power from Brad, and then maybe in the afternoon come reading like another painting of like Barbara Cox. Or it's like, and this idea that like, it doesn't feel like I'm overwhelming myself. It's just like, it's like you're seeing different friends throughout the day.
I was going to ask you this, establishing a relationship. Yeah, and so I understand you work in groups like 8 or 10, like you kind of work in batch on. Yeah. But yeah, can you tell us what it means to establish a relationship with the subject of your painting?
I feel like that's when I paint the best, because there's a purpose behind why I'm painting. It doesn't always have to be like a super deep, profound meaning, but I painted strangers for so long just working on technical ability that it's almost like I know that's not what I want to do anymore. I want to know the people that I'm working with because I spend so much time with them. So this idea of like building a relationship, just like knowing like, like Alice Walker, white looking physical in the since grade. And like just finding that out about Alice, and then later on being able to paint Zora, knowing that like somebody was searching for this information and like put a tombstone on her grave because it was art. Like just like messages like that, and like I feel like shit have lost. And like within the relationships, I feel like they are tied in a relationship. So it's like I said, privilege for me to be a good friend that allowed me to the surface.
Can I tell you something? Octavia Butler's grave was parked incorrectly. Still, when I'm not sitting there. It is. Octavia Butler, come on, no list. She's a lovely thing. Just stature, posture, gaze. I look forward to that. It's so exciting to establish relationship, to create a sanctuary. Something in like my chest even is like, I feel so moved by those tender and intimate modes of describing your work. I imagine your space is quiet, or I feel like the ways that you're describing something between friends. I don't know, I feel like I've really heard an artist speak in that way. There is something about your process in there, but there's also something about your person and your character, your demeanor that is really profound in the weekend. I'm so glad that your work is short again. Yeah, so that's big. Yeah, and I think you are offering these messages with it without the use of text, that the cursive, it stays with me. It stays with me so much. Are there ever impulses that will work to? No, from the way that I feel like you're so in touch with it. I'm like, maybe saying my own practice of the way that I'm pushing, and then I just say, I'm carrying pushing. You don't feel like you're pushing, and it's so beautiful. So I do, I want to invite perhaps questions from people, but I did want to just kind of express my deep appreciation for the commitment and dedication and care in your practice. It really teaches me so much as an artist. So thank you.
Ja, kan je niet denken over